Hey everybody, welcome to episode 106. I kind of had to do a quick filler episode here because that Transformers the movie soundtrack was supposed to be here yesterday, and I thought it was going to come today, and it still hasn't arrived. And I got a message from the U.S. Postal Service saying that it was, or sorry, from the Discogs from the USPS that it's being delayed. It's stuck somewhere in like the south of the state. I don't know, something weird like there. It's in transit. I can't remember what it is, but regardless, it'll be here soon. So I'm going to postpone that one for now, and instead, as a backup plan, we're going to. I'm going to talk about something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Obviously, Heavy Metal, the movie, the soundtrack. But let's just double it because I haven't done one about the movie yet, and let's just make it a Heavy Metal, the movie kind of thing, because there's a few different reasons, obviously. And I got my notes here. All my notes I got pretty much came from Wikipedia, so all this stuff is cited on Wikipedia for the most part, so that's where I'm getting my information. So if you question where I got the information, I got it from Wikipedia. So, and the most part, I probably won't go over every note because I didn't realize how long my notes were until I kind of put them together. But I'm going to talk about the different, because this is a movie of an anthology, so I'm going to talk about the different sequences and how they play into the soundtrack. And I'll do a little bit of extra little detail and stuff in there about the movie. I also prepared a slideshow with some images and some things from the movie, just kind of as a backdrop, so you don't have to just sit there and just listen to me talk and go blah 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 blah. So we'll get that going in a minute here. I did. You know what's weird is I forgot all about these too. I was looking for images of the movie, and I forgot about lobby cards. Has anybody ever heard of lobby cards? They're really cool. They're kind of pricey to find them, especially for classic movies on like eBay or whatnot. But lobby cards are pretty neat. Again, I like to collect things, and I like trading cards, right? And I like images from the movie, especially like a nice printed images. And they've got these. They got them for lots of different movies. They got a lot of 50s and 60s science fiction horror movies and stuff. But they're like cards about yay big. And they call them lobby cards because some of them were bigger too. They'd be out in the lobby, so when you come to see the movie, there'd be images from the movie, kind of to get you kind of excited before you go in to see the movie. So I know they're traded like trading cards. I mean, they're pretty heavy collector's items. So I found a few of the lobby cards and some pictures, like some zoom-ins and stuff of lobby cards. And they'll be in the slideshow as well. So I figured the slideshow is probably the best way to just throw some image. I should have done this earlier. Should have thrown some images out there. So when I'm just talking in my little box in the corner, which I'll be, you'll see the lobby cards in there. I'm not going to pull up the YouTube Music soundtrack. And by the way, if you want to listen to this, just go to the YouTube Music. It's on there, and listen to it. Like I said, I'm not going to play any of the excerpts from the album. I remember I ordered this a little while ago. I probably talked about it in a previous video when it came in. Those are the 2 discs there. Great condition, and I didn't pay a lot for this at all. I think I paid like $12 or something like that. And the cover is just immaculate, shiny gloss condition. It does have an aroma to it, if you know what I mean. It does have a very... It's got this is what my aroma is. Old basement, not musty. Old basement, Mary Jane, and some cigar smoke thrown in there too. Maybe cigarette smoke, just regular cigarette smoke. And a little bit of old bookstore or old record store all kind of thrown in. So it's got a nice aroma to it. In my notes, I made a note of there is a reissue of this on LP. I think it was 2011 or 2017. I'll find it in my notes. But this is not it. I'm looking at it. This is not the reissue. This is an original 1981 release, which is cool because that's what I wanted originally, because that's what I had before. I'll also make note of it. I also had the Elmer Bernstein soundtrack score, which is a separate record from this. I found it down at Sam's Jams back in 1988. And it just has the Elmer Bernstein score. Now, you probably know Elmer Bernstein. He's done a lot of soundtrack, like scores, like very orchestral, very dun, 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 like he did Stripes. And obviously Stripes, is Ivan Reitman. Ivan Reitman also directed this movie. I think he directed it and produced it, along with the original publisher of Heavy Metal Magazine. But, yeah, so Ivan Reitman sounds like he takes Elmer Bernstein with him where he goes as far as score work. He also did Space Hunter: Legends in the Forbidden Zone as a Elmer Bernstein score. You'll know they're very, very recognizable. Like James Horner, who did like Krull and I can't remember everything else. So some of the Star Trek motion picture. I mean, his soundtracks are very. I don't know if he did he do the original soundtrack, or I know he did Wrath of Khan. But anyways, they're very identifiable. So just like Elmer Bernstein, I'm just showing the inside gatefold of this record. Like I said, it's in great condition, outstanding condition. I mean, even with the aromas or aromatherapy. But as you can see, the corners aren't really that scuffed up. A little bit on the back. The spine of it's in pretty decent shape. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the record itself. I got sleeves in here. I think they're just all black sleeves. Well, I got some writing on them. Nothing of note. Just credits about the. I might actually keep this out. I don't know how to edit, because this has the some of the credits. I've got most of this in my notes, but they've got a lot of the credits. I got it in my notes. The credits for the music, by the different bands and whatnot. But I'm gonna go, because like I said, the focus is on the soundtrack, obviously, but I do want to cover the movie to some extent, just to kind of give you a frame of reference. Now, before I get going here, let me also tell you my experience with heavy metal, and I probably hinted to this or mentioned parts of the story in other videos, but when this came out, now remember, if you go back to that video on like Futuropolis and like the lame space art, you'll notice that Books Futuropolis made mention to Heavy Metal Magazine. Now, I remember vividly seeing Heavy Metal Magazine on the back. So here was the register at the Rochester Book Center across the street from my high school and next to Kittyland. You guys should know where that's at by now, or where it was. But anyways, in the corner, I would go in there and I would look down over the guy's shoulder or girl's shoulder who's working there and look down. They had like a magazine rack in the back with all Club Magazine, Hustler, all the good stuff is in the back, right? And then underneath, down in the row, I could always see Heavy Metal, the magazine, and it had some crazy, sci-fi, crazy-looking cover on it, and it always got me super excited, but you had to be 18 to buy it, and I probably could have just said to my dad, "Dad, can I get that magazine back there?" It's not one of those magazines, like one of the many that he had. But I said, it's a little risque. And looking back on it, it's pretty risque for, the age I discovered it at, I think like literally like 1980, I think I discovered that. Yeah, I think it would have been pretty risque for a kid of that age. It kind of leads me into my story about this movie. So they had the movie was coming out in 1981. I believe my parents had already separated by this time. My mom had moved out of the house, because I know my mom wasn't involved in this. But my dad, I said to him, "Dad, I want to go see this movie with my friends. Can you take us to see this movie?" I thought it was for my birthday. I don't think it was for that birthday of 81. I think that birthday of 81 was Chuck E. Cheese, I believe. Or, I can't remember what that birthday was. My birthday is in July, and I believe it says that this movie came out in August, which makes sense, because now thinking back about it, like I said, I mean, there are holes in my memory. but I don't believe that the movie had come out in July. Let me just double check my notes here. It should be under where the release of the movie is. Film was released. No, it's on Blu-ray. Sorry. It's the end of that. Release. Here we go. Film was released on August 7th, 1981. Okay, so that makes sense. So, I know it was summer, but I don't think it was my birthday, because that would have been July 19th. So, it was probably shortly after my birthday. Well, obviously it was. And I don't think we saw it on opening day, per se. But, I can't remember exactly who at Friends came along with me, but I had like 3 friends, I think, or it was 2 friends. 2 friends with me. And, I wanted to see this movie because I saw the preview for it, the trailer for it on TV. And he's like, okay. So he takes me, because he figured, it's a cartoon movie, so I'm not going to pay attention. This is before he started walking out on movies that he just couldn't take anymore. But I wish he would have kind of walked out on this movie. So he came there, and we were watching the movie, and for the most part, I think it was fine. Up until the Harry Canyon sequence, in particular when the girl, I can't remember what her name is, the dame, is the guy as he calls her, she drops her top, and kids are like, whoa, and it was cartoon too, and my dad I just look over, my dad he's got this like this, he always sit like this a lot too, right? He'd be thinking all the time, and he'd give me this look like this. Did I do it? Did I do it okay? I'm just thinking of my dad, because I look like my dad a little bit now that I'm older. He just gives that. He just gives me that look, and I'm just like, okay. And we're watching it. My dad's just like, he's sitting there shaking his head, and then it was okay. But then I think when the den scene came up, and the one girl, drops her top, and then the queen, she drops her, and he grabs onto her and stuff. My dad's just like, I could hear him heavily breathing over there. It's the same thing, same sound he used to make when I first started to learn how to drive, and which was a young age, and I would step on the gas pedal, even if I wasn't like gunning it. I'd step on the gas pedal, and he'd go. They'd always make this noise. I always thought it was like the carburetor or some like the air intake of the car making the noise. It's like, no, it's my dad always nervous every time I stepped on the accelerator. But anyways, yeah. So he was a little miffed about that, and then he didn't think it was going to come back to bite us in the butt, but it did. I can't remember which parent. Because I thought they had permission to go see the movie, and I thought they said what movie they're going to, and maybe the parents didn't know yet either until after the fact. But I remember after the fact, my dad got a telephone call. I remember I answered the phone too. We had the phone in the kitchen right next to that 8-track player. Phone rings, ring. I go answer the phone. Hey, is your dad there? I'd like to talk to him. This is, Billy's mom. I don't know, it was Billy. I can't remember who the kid was, actually. I want to say it was, I don't want to give his name away, but I think I know the kid it was. I think it was the one, he became a neighbor, but he was also, his grandparents had a house where he would be at a lot. I think it was him. Oh, and it might have been the kid down the street. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, and then I remember my dad's like, yeah, I know, I didn't know that either. Nope. I remember that conversation, and then he goes, he says, yeah, Tim, I don't think we should have saw that movie. He says, I should have checked into it a little bit more before we saw it, which is funny because, again, I don't know if I got this right. I think one of 2 scenarios. This is all I can think of. This is what I usually tell when I tell people this story for the last 40 years. This is what I pretty much tell people. It's one of the 2. It's either heavy metal, rock and roll came out before it, because we did see that in the theater. I think it still came out afterwards. And I said to and then I said, hey, I wanted to go see heavy metal. It's a movie like rock and roll. And then my dad, because there was nothing really crazy in that movie, so my dad was like, sure. Or vice versa, I wanted to see rock and roll, and I said, hey, can I see this? Can we go see this movie? And he's like, I hope it's not like that other cartoon movie you had said. Because I think that's the case. I remember my dad saying something to that effect. So that's my story with heavy metal. Now, I rediscovered it again, of course, and it makes mention about 1983 when it starts playing on HBO. That's when we first got cable, was in 83. And I remember late at night, it would play on cable. And it continued to play up until, into the mid-80s. It doesn't say that specifically in the notes, but I know it played in the mid-80s because I specifically wanted to watch it and wanted to record it. Now that we had a video in '85 when we got we had in '84 we had a Betamax, but we couldn't get the Betamax to record, so we had to get and then my dad got another Betamax, which we could record on that, and that was not till '85. But I know that I didn't record it on Betamax. I recorded it on VHS after '85 when my dad actually bought a VHS. Because he's like, I don't know, it's starting to get hard to get these Betamax tapes anymore, so let's get a VHS. VHS. So I remember staying up late at night and recording it to get a copy of the movie. And that was my copy of the movie. I also remember going to Kmart, I want to say like before I graduated high school, and bought the movie on VHS. However, it says it came out in 1991, so maybe I'm thinking of after. But I swear I would have had that in high school, but I probably had the VHS dub copy that I dubbed off cable. So it's kind of my background with the movie. Obviously, what do you call it? This movie pretty much is a formation of why I like the music that I like. Why I do the type of art that I do, and why I'm interested. And again, heavy metal. Once I started actually physically getting Heavy Metal magazine, it was all over. I mean, heavy metal in and of itself, the whole concept, the magazine, the art, the types of stories, the over sexualization. I mean, all that stuff. That's what's formed my id. If you talk to anybody who's known me for a long time, they're like, yeah, heavy metal's pretty much Tim. I mean, that's pretty much him in a nutshell. Just take the music from the movie, take that movie, take the magazine, take everything of heavy metal, and that's pretty much who you got. Obviously, I mean, look, Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Journey, all the bands that I'm always talking about and doing reviews they're all on here for the most part. Kiss isn't on here, no. Rush isn't on there, but Yes isn't on there. But a lot of the other ones are, because remember, it's heavy metal. Which is odd because I think the only heavy metal that's on this album is the Black Sabbath stuff, because it's got Dio. It's a Dio Black Sabbath from Mob Rules, because the song Mob Rules is actually in the movie. So, all right, let's switch over to my slideshow. We'll start that up here. Let's hope this goes off without a hitch. So, heavy metal, and I'll start the slideshow. I checked the video, I checked the image, and I don't think there's anything that's non-YouTube friendly. I also, I wish there would, no, it's just going to keep cycling through. There's about maybe 20 pictures, so it'll just cycle through. There's the album there. I don't think there's anything that can get me in trouble here. Also, I don't think there's any bad images, like really overly fuzzy ones. I think I tried to get as big images as I could. Plus, I think the slideshow thing kind of blows it up anyways. But let's get into the notes. So I'm going to try not to let myself get distracted with the thing. So when I mention the music, I'm not going to mention the music, how it's plays on the album on the 2 discs. I'm going to mention how it shows up in the movie. The reason why is because there are 2 tracks that are in the movie that are not on the album, and I'll make note of that when I get to it. But so like I said, and I have the blue. I don't think this is the. It makes mention about the Blu-ray release. It says that Best Buy had a Blu-ray release exclusive, and then eventually it was available, the non-exclusive. I did buy this from Best Buy, and it is a Blu-ray, but I don't believe that it is the Blu-ray the exclusive. I think it's just the regular general release Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but like I said, I did buy it. Ow. Oh man, I did buy it at what do you call it? Just in case anybody does have the exclusive. If there's any telltale signs, I mean, it doesn't say exclusive on it, so. But maybe somebody has it and they go, oh yeah, that is the exclusive. I don't think it is. I think it's just the general Blu-ray release. But that's how I have a copy of the movie. I think I have a digital copy as well. But let's get into it here. So, Heavy Metal, the movie, 1981. Sorry, I'm going to read off my notes, but it's the easiest way to do this. Like I said, all of this has come from, I think 90% of it's come from Wikipedia. I think I looked up a couple of other facts from a couple of other sites. One, I think I looked it up on HeavyMetal.com. I just wanted to kind of cross-reference some stuff, and I think I followed some of the sightings on what do you call it? Wikipedia, and got a little extra information that I added to it. So that's where everything come from. So if you wanna, see any of this stuff, it's all straight from. I just didn't want to just put up the Wikipedia page and just read off of it. It's kind of boring. I think the slideshow is probably a little bit better with the visuals. So, all right, Heavy Metal the movie, 1981. The film's an anthology of various science fiction and fantasy stories together by the single theme of an evil force that is Did I bleeding? No. That's the sum of all evils, as it's quoted in the movie. It was adapted from the Heavy Metal magazine, and the original story is in the same spirit. So some of the sequences are directly from Heavy Metal magazine, the specific comics. Some of them are just inspired from. Some of them are from stuff that had made mention of in Heavy Metal. Like I don't think Arzak by Moebius has actually been in Heavy Metal. I could quote me if I'm wrong. I do have them all on digital copy. I should look them up. And again, I'm not going to do a magazine video on this specifically. Because I don't think anybody pays attention. Nobody knows what a magazine is anymore. But anyways, I'd like to go into more in detail on that because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't pertain to the movie that I like in Heavy Metal magazine, specific stories and artists, and I'd like to get into that in a separate video. Like I said, I'm moving in a music direction, but I still will, time to time, pop back and talk about stuff that's kind of related to music. But like I said, everything that I'm into is tangentially related to everything else. Maybe not like the role-playing game stuff as well, which I'm not really into much. Maybe not the action figure stuff, but definitely the comics and some movies and stuff like that tie into music because, like I said, I love music. I love movies that really... I didn't think that Glamby card was going to come out very good. I love some movies that are very... incorporate especially rock soundtracks like Transformers the movie soundtrack. Those are probably this and the unofficial or like Queen stuff or the the rock and roll album which doesn't actually exist. I love movies that utilize heavy rock or heavy metal or whatever you want to call it, soundtracks from the 80s. I just love that. So here we go. Now we're getting into good stuff. Like the magazine, the film features a great deal of graphic violence, which I don't really care so much about, sexuality, and nudity. That's what I'm all about. That was the beauty of Heavy Metal magazine. It's like, I want to see that magazine. I want to see what's in there. You knew there was going to be some good stuff in there, so you wanted to see it. Its production was expedited by this is talking about the movie. Production was expedited by having several animation houses work simultaneously for the different segments. So that's why each segment looks different from the other one. They were trying to get it done quick, so they had different teams working on it, different animation houses working on different. So some people call that disjointed, and they didn't like that. But I think that makes sense because just like the Heavy Metal, the magazine, the movie, I think the movie is very, very misunderstood. Because it is pretty much the magazine. The magazine, obviously, the stories are by different creators, different artists, different writers, different teams would do, different people would, did their stories and that's featured in a magazine as an anthology. So it would make no sense to have the entire movie animated by the same person. Again, I'm not going to get too much into the 2000 sequel that Kevin Eastman did, but I think that's where he dropped the ball. Was he made the entire movie animated by one company? I believe it was the company that did Titan AE. And Titan AE was also very much heavily inspired by I'll get to that too, by heavy metal. Sorry. Upon release, the film received with mixed reviews. It did from critics. I've got a few of those reviews, and I'll read them. With praises towards the animation, the visuals, Elmer Bernstein's score, which is great, and voice acting. It says, but criticism toward its story and overuse of graphic violence, it wasn't that violent. The film, however, was the modest success at the box office. It was a success, but it was a modest success, so I agree with that. And has achieved a cult status. It definitely is a cult movie. I mean, this is the quintessential definition of an cult movie is Heavy Metal the movie. One of, there's many like that, but that's definitely one of them. The film's influential soundtrack, which is what we're talking here, packaged by music manager Irving Azoff, and included several popular rock bands, and artists including Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Sammy Hagar, Don Felder, Cheap Trick, Devo, Journey, and Nazareth, amongst others. That is correct. And one little note here, yeah. Sequel titled Heavy Metal 2000, which I think was called FOC or something like that, was released in 2000. I did buy that on Blu-ray, on regular DVD, because DVDs had just come out at that time, and or shortly before that. It was received very negative reviews. I thought it was terrible. It was too heavily reliant on his wife, Julie Strain, who, obviously, she was like a B movie actress with giant stuff, and he married her. She was his wife, and he just kept. He was definitely, trying to pump up her career, and she was animated into the movie as like one of the main characters, and then her friend, which I think was like kind of like a love triangle kind of thing they had going there, like I don't know what was going on, but it was definitely Eastman with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle and What Money is being way too self-indulgent, and that's what I think happened. And I think he, like I said, he the Ninja Turtles was amazing, but I seriously think he dropped the ball on Heavy Metal. I think he dropped the ball for his entire ownership of Heavy Metal. I don't think he doesn't own it anymore. I had nothing against the guy, and I think the Ninja Turtles are amazing, but Heavy Metal, I'm not saying I'd do a great job if I had the money either, but I think I might be able to do something a little bit truer to what it actually was. Okay, so let's get into the movie. So we're going to go through the different sequences, which they're all kind of popping up here on the thing. Not in any particular order on the slideshow, but I'll put it in particular order in the notes. So we got Soft Landing, which if you've seen the video, seen that image coming up of that old Corvette and the spaceman, in it that drops out of there. This is called the title sequence. It's based on a comic by the same name by Dan O'Bannon. Now keep the name Dan O'Bannon in mind. He's the writer who wrote Alien, the movie. He did a movie called Dark Star with John Carpenter. Not John Carpenter. Yeah, it was Carpenter? I thought he did it with what's-his-face, too, James Cameron. They did a movie, Dark Star. And he also, he worked with Mobius and wrote a really cool graphic novel called The Long Tomorrow. I believe it makes mention of that in here, too. But he did a comic called Soft Landing with an artist called Thomas Workington? I think I'm pronouncing it right. So the title sequence story opens with a space shuttle orbiting Earth. The bay doors open, releasing a 1960s Corvette. An astronaut seated in the car then begins to descend through Earth's atmosphere, landing in the desert canyon. And the music that's being played in that is Radar Rider by Riggs. Funny though, as weird as they changed in the South Park sequence, which we'll get to. The South Park sequence, they they changed the car to the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am, and I thought that was funny. I laughed my ass off when I first saw that. But there it is, right there. That's the sequence we're talking about. So, but they're playing the Don Felder song because that's kind of the only song they had for the. There's the sequence there for in South Park. But Radar Rider by the Riggs band called Riggs, which isn't really a well-known band, but they were doing they did the it's right on radar. If you hear the movie, it's got this cool do 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 do. It's got a really cool guitar solo into it where he's shifting gears after he lands. Drops the parachute. It's cool opening. The second one, it kind of feeds into the second sequence, which is kind of the character that's in the car. There's the car there. Is this guy called Grimaldi, and he's like a traveler astronaut, like scientist, and he brings home this thing. So in the framing story, which this is the framing story, you'll see the house. The house has popped up there a few times. The astronaut Grimaldi arrives at home where he's greeted by his daughter. He says he has something to show her. When he opens his case, a green crystalline sphere rises out and melts him, which is it's a pretty graphic scene. It introduces itself to the terrified girl as the sum of all evils. There we go. Looking into the orb known as the Lochnar, the girl sees how it has influenced society throughout time and space. And it's true, that's the framing story. So every time a sequence would end, they would go back, and you could see that the Lochnar is getting bigger and bigger as it's kind of like educating the daughter about like the evils of the world, or the sum of all evils. I'll get into that picture you just saw pop up there too. We'll get into that a little bit later. So the Harry Canyon, perfect. There we go, Harry Canyon. The Harry Canyon scene. Can I pause that? Remind me if it pops back up and I'm talking about it. I'm gonna try to pause it right on the thing so we kind of leave it on there. Let's go. There's Tarna. I just want to see if I can let's pause it on there real quick. Bear with me here. Let it go. There's those lobby cars I'm talking about. I love those things. Well, let me just read it until we get to it. So, in the Harry Canyon sequence, which is an original story by Daniel Goldberg and Len Blum. So there's the house. Let's stop it there for a minute. Based on The Long Tomorrow by Moebius. So Moebius and did a comic called The Long Tomorrow with Dan O'Bannon. And then Daniel Goldberg and Len Blum, they did a story based on that. And that's where they came up with the Harry Canyon sequence. So it's in a dystopian and crime-ridden New York City. Let me go to... Let's go to that real quick. There's Kenny again. Kenny! God, that's such a funny sequence. Sorry, bear with me here. Can I just fast forward it? Oh yeah, I can fast forward it. Look at that. Well, there's the Harry Canyon, but let me go to the opening shot of Canyon, because that's pretty cool. There we go. Let's pause it there. All right. So, in a dystopian and crime-ridden New York City in 2031, which is only a few years from now, a cynical taxicab driver, Harry Canyon, narrates his day in film noir style. It is very film noir. Grumbling about his fares and frequent robbery attempts, he thwarts with a disintegrator installed in the back of the seat. He stumbles into an incident where he rescues a red-haired young woman from Rudnick, a gangster who murdered her father. She explains that her father discovered the Lochnar. So the Lochnar is a reoccurring theme through everything here. And they have been pursued relentlessly by people attempting to obtain it. Harry takes her to his apartment and where they have sex. That's the scene that got me in trouble as a kid. With the parents of the friends. She decides to sell the Lochnar to Rudnick and split the money with Harry. Rudnick is disintegrated by the Lochnar at the exchange, and she attempts to double-cross Harry, which is film noir. Harry Harry double-cross Harry to keep the money for herself. When she pulls out a gun, Harry uses the disintegrator on her and keeps the money and summarizes the incidents as a 2-day ride with one hell of a tip. This sequence, like the one of the other sequences, has probably the largest. Most of the music is not most of it, but a lot of it is from this one scene. In particular, we've got "Veteran of a Psychic War" by Blue Oyster Cult, which is the only Blue Oyster Cult song on this soundtrack. Which, remember, as I said in the one video, they were supposed to do all of it. The entire album of Fire of Unknown Origin was supposed to be the soundtrack to this movie, but they go into it a little bit why they pulled that out. And they just put Veteran of the Psychic War, which oddly enough, Veteran of the Psychic War was an add-in song that they added to it to make the album, co-written with Eric Bloom and Michael Moorcock of Elric fame. And it was the only song on the soundtrack that wasn't about the movie, but that was the only one they used, which is kind of odd. So, anyway, so we got Veteran of the Psychic War, True Companion, great, True Companion. I think that's the song that's going right now as he's getting the hot dog and all this stuff's happening. It's True Companion, great song by Donald Fagen. Blue Lamp, they go into the one, I think it's the police station, they're playing Blue Lamp by Stevie Nicks. Oh, it's a great song. And then, of course, during the sex scene is Open Arms by Journey. So another reason why that song is also burned into my psyche is because of that scene in that movie and the controversy between that and the kids, and that whole shebang. So forever will I remember the song Open Arms, and forever will I remember that scene from this movie and that whole shenanigans that went down. So also Heartbeat also by Riggs, which is another song that Riggs does in here. Alright, so let's skip to Den. Now, you might know Den. Actually, this starts out with the Den sequence. That's the image that's on the back, which was on the alternate poster. Which, it's funny because Den is probably the strongest story, the strongest sequence on the entire movie. It's one of my favorite too. I love Richard Corbin's art. I love the whole Den concept. In the movie, this sequence of the movie was amazing, and that's what while I get to the critics, even though the critics kind of panned the movie, they also did give it praise for this specific sequence. Now, here's the one thing I gotta say, which is also odd, seeing that they put that on the back of the soundtrack. There are no songs of the rock songs on the Den sequence. It's all Elmer Bernstein's score, which I find weird. Why would they put that on the back of the album, the artwork for the alternative poster, if the song was never on there? It's weird. So let me just give you the rundown. It's based on the character by Richard Corbin, which he has I've actually got a graphic novel, a CBR of a graphic novel, which I'd like to get the hard copy of. That's got the whole sequence in it, which is awesome, which is pretty much part of his first graphic novel for the Den of Earth. A nerdy teenager, as you can see the kid there, a nerdy teenager finds a green meteorite, the Lochnar, near his house and adds it to his rock collection. During a lightning experiment, this is so Blue Oyster Cult too, the orb hurls the young man into a world of Neverwhere, where he transforms into a naked, muscular man called Den. This is basically it's a young adolescent male fantasy movie, or what do you call it? Sequence. Den, an acronym for his Earth name, David Ellis Norm. Den. There, Den witnesses a strange ritual rescuing a beautiful woman who is about to be sacrificed by Ulatek. Reaching safety, she introduces herself as Catherine Wells from British colony of Gibraltar. The two start having sex. That was the other scene that, my dad was like, but are interrupted by the minions of Ard. an immortal man who wants to obtain the Lochnar for himself. After being taken to Ard, Den demands to see Catherine. His request is ignored, and Ard orders his men to castrate Den. Den fights off the soldiers and shoots Ard, who is immortal and heals immediately. The girl turns out to be sleeping encased in glass. The way the guy says it in glass. Don't eat the rice pudding, there's glass in. Sorry, I'll get to that later. Under a spell where only Ard can awaken her. Ard offers Den a deal. If he gets the Lochnar from the Queen and brings it to him, the girl will be released. Den agrees and infiltrates the palace with Ard's best soldier, Norrell. They are promptly caught by the Queen's guards, but she offers latency if Den has sex with her. There it is, a third time. He complies, thereby distracting the Queen while the raiding party steals the Lochnar. Den escapes and races back to rescue Catherine from Ard, recreating the lightning incident that drew him to Neverwhere. He is able to banish Ard and the Queen. Den suspects that they were teleported to Earth. Refusing the opportunity to take the Lochnar for himself, Den rides with Catherine into the sunset, content to remain in Neverwhere. As for the Lochnar, it rises into the sky and lands on a space station, where it is picked up by someone else, which takes us into our next sequence. So, sorry about the long synopsis here, but it's a pretty involved sequence. Like I said, one of the best, if not the best one in the movie. It also then it rolls into the Captain Stern, the Captain Stern sequence. Let me see if there's any more. There's the poster on the back. I don't think I've got any more Den scenes. Oh, there he is there. Oh, that's the Queen in the Den sequence there. So let's go to, that's the end of the other sequence. We'll go to the, but I had the Captain Stern one. I know I had the one that doesn't work. Sorry, just flip. Well, yeah, it doesn't really work, but we'll just leave up this for now. Okay, so Captain Stern, based on the character of the same name created by Bernie Wrightson, which is true. It's a Bernie Wrightson sketch, which is kind of cool. Again, in 1987, I got that VHS set called the Masters of Comic Book Artwork, of comic book art, and there's a huge thing on Bernie Wrightson. There's a huge thing on Moebius in there. All of this stuff, it's all intertwined. That's what I'm saying. All the stuff's intertwined together. It's all this whole this world that really doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I'm sure there's comics. I mean, obviously you got the MCU, which is, or the DCU, which is movie related with comic books and stuff like that. But it was so much cooler back in the day. I mean, everything's coming from heavy metal was just so awesome. And I know heavy metal just recently finally got discontinued after all this time, and it was really on life support. They went through a lot of different owners and different editors and chiefs, and I don't think, the problem is, heavy metal, as you'll notice in some of the articles written about it, it is not PC, and it is not a quote-unquote woke concept. It's pretty out there. It's if you really boil down a lot of the stories and stuff, yes, it's very sexist. It's very I got whatever name labels that the modern society wants to slap on it for the culture war. All this misogyny and all this stuff. Yes, it's very much all of that stuff. I mean, and it wouldn't fly today, and I think it was a detriment to the magazine. The magazine just fell because I don't think it could. The stories and stuff were just getting boring, and all of the charm and the beauty that the original stories and all that old stuff had, it kind of lost its luster. Plus, you also got to remember, this magazine and all this stuff was very prominent during, obviously, the late 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, pre-internet. And, with the advent, with internet pornography, Pornhub and all the other stuff that's so readily available to, especially young teenage boys nowadays, that it doesn't have the same intrigue that, I mean, this, like I said, this was, you were like, oh, I gotta go, you were sneaking to see this magazine. Obviously the movie was, wasn't appropriate for the age group that we were going to at the time, but that's what was the allure. That was what was so fun about it. And it had all these wild and crazy, stories, and wild and crazy science fiction, crazy art, psychedelic art, fantasy art, science fiction, a lot of lame space art. I mean, all of that stuff. The music, heavy metal, hence the name, magazine, the rock music, all that stuff. It all intertwined, and it was just so awesome. And none of that exists anymore. And, and when it does, when somebody does try to do something like this, it's so self-aware that it's a try hard. It tries too hard to, to be something that already was created, that was done to perfection. And regardless of what people say about the movie's art, the animation, or the artwork that's in some of the, and there's amazing artwork, and then there's very poor artwork in the magazine. But the magazine had a lot of issues, and there's a lot of stories that were in that magazine. And so not everyone, like anything, South Park even, South Park doesn't nail it out of the park every episode. There's a lot of stinker episodes because there's a lot of South Park. And so stuff like heavy metal, there's a lot of magazines and there's a lot of stories, and not all of them knock it out of the park. But when they do, the greats, I mean, they're awesome. Moebius being one of them. So it's all it's just a thing. And I think when, like, even today, if you were trying to make something like this, you'd already know that this existed. So you've instantly become self-aware. So the only thing you're doing is you're going to basically either a pale imitation to it, or you're going to overdo it and make it look too try-hard. And you're going to face, all of the, all the social justice warriors trying to cancel you and take you down because your stuff is misogynistic or sexist, or, I don't think anybody cares about you can have all the graphic violence you want. I don't think anybody cares. I don't think woke crowd nor the non-woke crowd really care about violence. I mean, violence just seems to be so passe at this point. But, every time you put naked girls in it, they're scantily clad, and, and they're the victims, or they're the, they're not strong, strong, although ironically Tarna is a strong female character. She's basically the hero of the movie, and so also all the people that are complaining about, all the movies now are made about girls. Heavy metal, the main character in heavy metal, Tarna, who's technically outside of the Lochnar, is the main character of the movie, and she's a strong female warrior. I can't get any more woke than that. Sure, she gets naked a lot. Sure, she, gets attacked, and a bunch of men, try to, have their way with her, right? But she prevails. She fights through it. They all get their comeuppance. She ends up killing them all horribly in graphic violence in the end. So, I mean, but for some reason it wouldn't fly today. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. So I'm not going to read the whole Captain Stern. I'm kind of running out of time here. I'm not going to go too heavily in detail. Let's just put the Captain Stern. You got to see the movie because I'm not going to do it any justice. But essentially, there's the main music in the Captain Stern is the Cheap Trick song "Reach Out," which I believe is. I think it might be off of one of their studio albums. I can't remember exactly. If it is, it would be off of like. One-on-One or Next Position, Please. One of those albums there, I believe. I'll have to check the see. Other than that, I think it might be just written specifically for the movie. But I don't think any of these movies. I think all these songs are from studio albums, I believe. So it might be that. I'm just not super familiar with where the song came from. Even though I'm a big Cheap Trick fan, there's certain albums that I just don't listen to that often. Okay, so there was a Neverland sequence. So there was going to be a bridge between the Captain Stern episode and going into the B-17. They decided to cut the scene, so it never made it in, which connected Captain Stern to the B-17 sequence. when the B-17 bomber shows up. So instead, they just go right into the B-17 bomber. And that's the song, Heavy Metal, Taking a Ride by Don Felder, that they used at South Park. You know, the heavy metal, you know, that whole, take a ride on heavy metal. That's the song. So that's in that sequence, which is really cool. And then that segues into So Beautiful and So Dangerous, which is a really cool one. And now this one's got a lot of music in it. This one's basically about aliens coming to Earth, which aliens do come to Earth. They end up kidnapping, or they don't really kidnap, but they try to recall their robot they sent out, which was like the scientist from like the Pentagon. There's a great, I think I got this, let me go to the, that's a sequence from it there where she's getting the girl, the secretary. Basically, it's just they use like a big hose to suck up the guy, and then that's the end of the stern. So that was just going to be 17. So yeah, right there. So this was the scene. This is the ship shows up over the Pentagon, and they start playing the song Queen Bee by the Grand Funk Railroad. It's awesome. I love Queen Bee. It's probably my favorite Grand Funk Railroad song, and that one's from a studio album too. But they start playing Queen Bee, so anyways, they suck up the scientist guy, which is like a robot, and then they end up grabbing, accidentally they grab the secretary too, you know, and she's, like her skirt flies up, and she's got like, you know, pretty crazy cleavage and stuff, and so she goes flying into this thing. And then there's this whole sequence where, there's a pretty druggy sequence in there too, where the two aliens just start snorting up all this Nyborg. Ugh, good Nyborg. And the great line from the movie is, he says, what does he say? He says, there's a, what does he say? He says, oh, he goes, I'm not driving. He goes, the problem people have, or reason people get in accidents or whatever when they're driving when they're stoned is because they don't learn to drive when they're stoned. I can't remember how it goes. It's pretty funny. Yeah, so anyways, the music from there. I Must Be Dreamin' by Cheap Trick, great song. Queen Bee, Grand Funk Railroad, as I mentioned. Crazy by Nazareth, that's a good song too. Suitable Case for Treatment, oh, that's good stuff. All of You by Don Felder. Prefabricated by Trust. Now, I gotta tell you, I think it's a French band, I believe, Trust. They're like a French, they kind of remind me of Helmet, if you remember the band Helmet. They're kind of like this, like, very hard, rocky, almost metal band, but they're kind of like, they're a little Devo-ish, but they're very European. They're called Trust. And they did a song called Prefabricated. It's awesome. It's got this great guitar reverb. Oh, you just got to hear it. It's on the soundtrack, so if you go to the website, you know, YouTube, and you hit the soundtrack, you're going to hear the Prefabricated by Trust. Great song. And of course, Heavy Metal by Sammy Hagar, which, you know, you've probably heard the song Heavy Metal by Sammy Hagar. It's pretty well known. And that kind of is the, even though the Don Felder Taking a Ride is kind of the heavy metal title track to the movie, technically I think it's Heavy Metal by Sammy Hagar. Which brings us into the last sequence, which is the Tarna sequence. So let's just find a Tarna sequence. There's Tarna there. Okay, so Tarna shows up, which of course is the girl on the cover. You know, she's the strong female warrior. And essentially, yeah, it's kind of this, they start playing, I don't remember E5150 by Black Sabbath. I don't remember the song in it, but it's supposedly in it. It's one of the songs that was not put on the soundtrack. Also, the song Through Being Cool by Devo was not on the soundtrack. The Devo song that's on the soundtrack is Working in a Coal Mine, which is in the end credits, in the epilogue, and into the end credits of the movie. That's on the soundtrack. But Through Being Cool, which is a kind of a cool, they have like this weird like band that's playing. They're the one, that song's not on the soundtrack, and neither is E5150 by Black Sabbath. But The Mob Rules, which is from the album Mob Rules, obviously, by Black Sabbath with Dio, that's in it. And then there's a scene where there's like a big, all the mutants attack, and they start playing The Mob Rules. It's a great song. It's a great song, great sequence. So they call on, you know, this ancient warrior to come out, you know, to come out of whatever hiding or come out of stasis or whatever. She gets naked, of course, puts her armor on. That's kind of the character they kind of loosely base off for the South Park character with you shall bathe in the flower. I want to say the Fountain of Lamneth, but that's not what it's called. The Fountain of Grognog or something like that. With my daughter, and wash her bodacious boob. This is hilarious. So they're kind of like making fun of Tarna. So that's that sequence, which kind of it ends the movie. So then, essentially, she defeats the Lochnar, and then they go back, and then the girl who's with the Lochnar in the house, she's got you could tell by her hair it's a little different color, but she goes out, gets on the pterodactyl bird, and she becomes Tarna. She's like the next warrior of this race. And then she flies away, and that's in the epilogue. And then, of course, and then it closes with Working in a Coal Mine by Devo. So, great stuff. Like I said, yeah, the release is August 7th of 1981. It was a financial success. It said grossing over $20 million on a $9 million budget, equivalent to grossing $64 million in 2022. So it wasn't a failure, but it wasn't a huge moneymaker either. The reception, though. Here we go. Let's go through the reception. So the film was met with mixed response. Review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, frickin' Rotten Tomatoes, reports that 66% of critics have given the film positive review based on 35 reviews with an average rating of 5.8 out of 10. It's not a good review. And with the critical consensus, it's sexist, it's juvenile, and is dated. Heavy metal makes up for its flaws with its eye-popping animation. That's questionable. With a classic, smartly used soundtrack, which it does have. Okay, it's sexist. I'm not a sexist person per se. However, I've got my ways, I guess. Is it juvenile? Yes. However, here's the thing. This movie is made for teenage boys. Okay, well, outside of like 18 and 19-year-old boys, teenage boys aren't technically supposed to see the movie because it's rated NC-17, or it was rated R, which is supposed to be 17 or older back in the day. And then I think it was rated as NC-17. It's just like, okay, then how is it for juveniles? Sure, it's for young, I guess if you want to consider 18 and 19-year-olds, teenage boys that are juvenile, although they also can vote and can go to war and get killed for the country. It's just like, all right. Now, I know girls and guys don't really fully, don't fully emotionally mature until 25 years old anyway. So you're splitting hairs at this point. It's just like, okay, so is it juvenile? Yeah. It's something that, obviously, when did I see it? When I was really young, when I shouldn't have. And when did I continue to see it? All through my teen years, and then into my young adulthood, right? And I still to this day love this movie. And still to this day, this is the reason why I like the music that I like, right? So, is it juvenile? Sure. Is it sexist? Depends on your definition of sexist. Like I said, the main character in the movie is a strong female character. She's a warrior, right? Like I said, she gets naked. Who cares, right? Whatever. But she's a strong female warrior. She's the main character of the movie. Is that sexist? I guess. It's sexist to put her in scantily clad costume and make her naked. Sure. Sure, and all of the shit we see on, whether it's hip hop, whether it's advertising, all that stuff. Nobody's using sex appeal for any of that stuff. No, yeah, it's all sexist, isn't it? So everything's sexist in your opinion, right? So all of hip hop. I know I was just watching what do you call it? Icy Latte. What's the girl's name? Icy Spice. She's one of the Spice Girls now. Ice, right? Watching her shake her ass on her video, right? That's pretty much those hip-hop videos that I've been seeing. They're all about, I got lots of money and I'm pimping them hoes, right? It's like, okay, well, that stuff's all okay. That stuff's none of that sexist. All that stuff's fine. But a movie with the strong female character just happens to have a scantily clad costume, happens to get naked because that sells. That's sexist. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to get into that argument because, I don't have enough. I guess I'm not morally qualified to add my opinion to that, because I'm too juvenile, and immature. So I have no reason to jump into that conversation. I just find it I just sit back with popcorn and laugh, And unfortunately, nothing's created that I like to see because nothing has appeal. Except I can watch some hip hop videos and see Icy Spice shake her buttocks around. I like that. Anyways, sorry, it's neither here nor there. Where was that? Let's get into the actual reviews. So Janet Maslin of the New York Times, here we go. You're going to notice that all of these are all a bunch of dem rags. Anyways, dem rags. Janet Maslin of the New York Times wrote, and actually she gave it a pretty decent review. For anyone who doesn't think an hour and a half is a long time to spend with a comic book, Heavy Metal is impressive. I guess that was kind of a a backhanded compliment, sort of, I guess. So it doesn't think. So people who don't think that spending a half hour and a half time with a comic book would find Heavy Metal impressive. Yeah, the people who actually read the magazine. And noted that the film was scored very well. Like I said, she does actually give it some pretty good praise. With music much less ear-splitting, another backhanded comment, than the title would suggest. Yeah, well, she's right, though. The movie is called Heavy Metal. It's based on the comic book, an illustrated magazine called Heavy Metal, right? The only heavy metal song on here is Black Sabbath, and I guess by today's standards, I guess the Mob Rules really isn't that super heavy. I think that Prefabricated by Trust, that's a pretty heavy song. But again, it's hard rock at best. Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Journey, these aren't heavy metal bands. They're rock bands. And like I said, Heavy Metal is just an English translation of the original magazine called Metal. And I can't pronounce it very well, but a screaming metal from France, right? That's what the magazine is based on when National Lampoon's brought it over. So they just called it Heavy Metal, right? Heavy Metal also seemed like a cool name at the time. This is, late 70s. And so this is before the British wave of heavy metal. This is back when heavy metal was essentially Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, and to some extent Kiss and Blue Oyster Cult, which weren't really heavy metal. But anyways, sorry. So she gave it a good review with a lot of backhanded compliments. Variety magazine, another worthless piece of shit, declared initial segments has a boisterous blend of dynamic graphics, intriguing plot premises, and sly wit that unfortunately slide gradually downhill. Still, the net effect is overridingly positive one, and will likely find its way into an upbeat word of mouth. Yeah, they're right though. Exactly, that's what it is. Gene Siskel, here we go. Gene Siskel of Chicago Tribune gave the film 3 stars, writing that it isn't intended for close scrutiny on literal level. Whatever, Siskel. The film clearly is intended as a trip, and on that level it works very nicely. He criticizes the films as blatantly sexist and for having wildly romanticized violence. Okay. Sheila, I guess I won't read all of these, but let's just finish it off with, they basically all essentially say the same thing, is they just find it, sexist and violent and juvenile. Fine. Sums up my childhood. 1983, the movie aired on HBO. and then again in 1991. I remember airing, but the thing is, it aired periodically all throughout there. It wasn't specifically any time. The Blu-ray disc, of course, wherever it went, that also came out in 2011, and then in 2000, at the end of 2000, or February 1st, 2011, and then June of 2011, it came out, general release everywhere. I think this is the general release ever. I just happened to buy it at Best Buy. I don't think it's the exclusive. The music soundtrack, here we go. Released in 1981, considered in the genre of heavy metal and hard rock. Stevie Nicks, hard rock? Huh? Donald Fagen? Don Felder? Hard rock? Okay. Cheap Trick, hard rock? Devo, hard rock? It's not even rock. It's like experimental electric, whatever. But anyways, I won't get into the whole detail, but like I said, I was going to mention, like, Blue Oyster Cult recorded the song. Here we go. So Blue Oyster Cult recorded the song Vengeance the Pack. I love the song. For the film, but the producers declined it to use the song because the lyrics provided a capsulized summary of the Tarna vignette. So Veteran of the Psychic Wars was used instead. Both songs can be found in Blue Oyster Cult's album Fire of Unknown Origin. Though used in the film, the songs Through Being Cool by Devo and like I said, and E5150 Black Sabbath were not included on the soundtrack album release, which was also released in 1981. Again, it was re-released again later, but this is not the re-release. 2017, Rhino Records re-released it. Let's see, I guess I should kind of wrap it up here. I mentioned the score, legacy and cultural things. I'll just mention the two things. One is, the Elon Musk thing. Where's Elon Musk? So Elon Musk, as you remember, launched that Tesla Roadster into space with the astronaut on it. It wasn't officially stated, but they're pretty sure that he got the idea from, because I got a picture of it here, got the idea from Heavy Metal the movie. That's the actual Roadster with the thing. And I think the newspaper or the briefcase next to him is also in that car. So essentially, yes, he definitely got the idea from watching, Heavy Metal the movie. Now back to the other sequence, of course, was the South Park reference, which of course I'll go back here. And of course there's, with Kenny, the cheesing episode. I think it's season, just to let you know, it's season 12, episode 3. Major Boobage was the name of the title from South Park. Go ahead and watch that. Go dig up some South Park and watch that. The only other thing I want to just mention, and they said that the film served as inspiration for many animation and science fiction shows following, such as Blade Runner, but definitely Star Chaser and the Legend Orin, 1985, outstanding movie. I highly recommend going to find that. Gandahar, 1987, which I saw in the theater when I was in high school, 9th grade. I might want to skip that one. That one's kind of a hard one to watch. Akira, I could see that. The Fifth Element, definitely. Titan, AE, along with Sausage Party, never saw it. Mandy, never saw it. Spine of the Night, never saw it. Futurama, I have seen. And then Rick and Morty. So basically that's the legacy of, and there's references all over the time you see that, but those are probably the most outstanding references. So we'll wrap this up here, because we've gone an hour and 8 minutes. So again, this is supposed to technically be the soundtrack video. That's kind of what I was mainly paying attention to, but of course I will make mention to the movie as well, because I kind of went into the details on the movie as well. So it's kind of a double whammy here. You get the soundtrack and you get the movie kind of video special, double feature, sort of, kind of. All right. So hopefully that Transformers the movie soundtrack comes in tomorrow, and I'll do I already got my notes on it. I already know what I'm going to say. I'm probably going to dig up some videos or some images and do a slide a slideshow. I just find that's a lot better than a lot of just dead space while I'm talking. Because a lot of you people probably aren't even watching it anyways. You're probably just going to listen to me babble on. If you do listen to me, I've noticed that people only listen to about maybe 6 to 8 minutes of my video of an hour. So I guess I need to start shortening the videos up. But like I said, I can't get through all this information in one video, and I don't want to make 2 videos on the same subjects. I'd rather just blow it all into one video and get it out there. So, all right. Remember, like and subscribe. Help me grow it. Like I said, if you really like the stuff and you want me to do more and you want me to up the production value when I start getting some paid for this, I'll do that. Like I said in the video when I unboxed the that Leo James. Really, I would just like to get some free guitars out of this. Really, but obviously a fourth revenue stream. I got another revenue stream added to the list. So obviously, hopefully, elevate me to the lower class so that maybe I can afford an Epiphone one day, as opposed to a knockoff Les Paul. All right, but in the meantime. All this poor guy has is my my cheap, juvenile, sexist, graphically violent entertainment to watch, right? Because I'm not terrible of a person. All right, I will catch you on the next one. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.